You ever looked back at a woman who once seemed completely captivated by you and wondered what she actually fell in love with? Not your job, not your face, not even the words you said. If that question has ever kept you awake longer than you wanted to admit, stay with me. And if you've been searching for conversations that don't treat you like a number but like a human being trying to understand himself, consider subscribing. Because some truths only make sense when you're finally ready to hear them. I want to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. Most men spend years trying to become more attractive without ever asking what a woman is truly responding to. They collect advice like it's armor. Dress better, earn more, be mysterious, text less, smile more, never show weakness, always stay confident. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, they slowly disappear. Because they're so busy performing a version of themselves that they forget to notice whether anyone is actually connecting with the real person underneath. I've spent years listening to women describe the men they loved. Not the men they dated, not the men they admired from a distance, the men they genuinely loved. And something fascinating kept happening. The details were always different. Different ages, different careers, different personalities. One woman loved a quiet engineer who barely spoke in groups. Another couldn't stop thinking about an outgoing musician who filled every room with laughter. One fell for a divorced father in his 50s, another for a shy university student who still had no idea where life was taking him. On the surface, these men had almost nothing in common, yet emotionally, their stories sounded strangely familiar. That made me realize something. People often confuse attraction with love. They're related, but they're not the same thing. A woman can be attracted to your appearance before she even knows your name. She can admire your confidence after one conversation. She can enjoy your attention for weeks. None of that automatically becomes love. Love asks a different question. It quietly wonders, who am I becoming when I'm with this person? That question changes everything. Because real love isn't only about seeing someone, it's also about seeing yourself differently because of them. And this is where so many men become lost. They assume they're competing against taller men, richer men, younger men, more experienced men. Sometimes they aren't competing at all. Sometimes the real question is much simpler. How does she feel about herself after spending an hour with you? Notice I didn't ask how she feels about you. Those aren't always the same thing. A man can impress a woman while making her feel tense. Another man can have obvious flaws, yet leave her feeling emotionally safe, deeply understood, and unexpectedly alive. Guess which one is more likely to stay in her thoughts after she gets home? Here's something most people don't talk about. Human beings rarely remember every sentence from a conversation, but they remember the emotional atmosphere. They remember whether they felt judged, whether they felt accepted, whether they felt seen without having to perform. That's why some people become unforgettable without realizing it. Not because they're perfect, because they're emotionally recognizable. And before you misunderstand me, this isn't about pretending to be endlessly kind or becoming the man who sacrifices himself hoping love will eventually arrive. That isn't love. That's emotional bargaining. Women usually sense the difference far earlier than men expect. The men who quietly exhaust themselves trying to earn affection often believe they're being generous. But inside, they're silently asking for permission to be enough. That's a heavy feeling for another person to carry. No relationship can comfortably grow on top of that weight. Maybe you've experienced something similar. Maybe you've spent months trying to prove your value, buying thoughtful gifts, always answering immediately, becoming available whenever she needed you, only to realize she seemed to drift further away instead of closer. That experience can leave a scar, not because she rejected you, but because it makes you question your own instincts. You begin wondering whether kindness even matters, whether vulnerability is a mistake, whether women secretly want something completely different from what they say. I understand why that confusion happens, but the answer isn't becoming colder. It isn't building walls so high that nobody can reach you, and it certainly isn't turning every interaction into a strategy. Because love has an unusual habit. It slips away the moment every conversation becomes a performance. And that brings us to the question almost nobody asks the right way. If women don't truly fall in love with status alone, if they don't stay because of endless effort, then what are they actually responding to? There are two psychological reasons that appear again and again beneath the surface of real relationships. Most men spend years chasing the wrong things while quietly overlooking them, and once you recognize the first one, you'll never look at your past relationships, or yourself, in quite the same way. The first reason a woman falls deeply in love isn't because you convince her you're valuable. It's because around you, she doesn't feel like she has to convince you that she is. Read that again in your own mind. Those are two completely different experiences. I remember a conversation with a woman in her early 30s. She had dated men who were successful, handsome, ambitious, the kind of men everyone else admired. From the outside, people assumed she had everything she wanted. But when she described those relationships, she kept repeating one sentence. I always felt like I was taking an exam. Not because anyone literally tested her, no, it was much quieter than that. She felt she had to be interesting enough, pretty enough, funny enough, easy enough, independent but not too independent, emotional but never emotional enough to become inconvenient. She wasn't sharing a relationship, she was managing an image. And after months of living that way, she said something I'll never forget. I stopped recognizing myself. That sentence stayed with me, because I hear different versions of it from both women and men. The details change, the feeling doesn't. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine being with someone who listens without immediately trying to fix you, who laughs with you instead of evaluating you, who notices your silence without making it awkward, who doesn't rush to fill every pause because they're comfortable simply being there. Something begins to happen inside the nervous system. The body relaxes, the shoulders drop, the breathing changes, the mind stops rehearsing. You don't even realize it's happening. You simply notice that somehow you feel more like yourself. That emotional experience is incredibly powerful, not because it's dramatic, because it's rare. We live in a world where almost everyone feels observed. Social media trains people to perform. Dating apps encourage comparison. Even ordinary conversations sometimes feel like interviews. What do you do? What do you earn? What's your plan? What makes you different? Without realizing it, people begin carrying invisible scorecards everywhere they go, and eventually, they become exhausted. So when someone appears who doesn't seem interested in keeping score, it feels different. Not exciting in the loud, chaotic way people often describe chemistry. Different in a quieter way, safer, warmer, more honest. Now here's where many men accidentally misunderstand this idea. They think emotional safety means agreeing with everything, never disagreeing, never teasing, never expressing boundaries. That's not safety, that's fear disguised as politeness. Women are remarkably sensitive to emotional congruence. They often notice when your words and your inner state don't match. You can say, "It's okay," but if resentment is hiding underneath, it eventually leaks into your tone. You can pretend to be endlessly confident, but anxiety has 1,000 tiny ways of revealing itself. Authenticity isn't perfection, it's consistency. The person she's talking to today feels like the same person she'll meet tomorrow. No masks, no sudden personality shifts, no endless guessing. Do you know why that's so calming? Because unpredictability forces the brain into survival mode. Consistency allows it to rest. Think about the people you trust most in your own life. It's probably not because they never disappointed you, it's because you generally know who they are. Their reactions don't feel like emotional weather. You don't wake up wondering which version of them you'll meet. Love grows surprisingly well in that kind of stability. But there's another layer, one that's much harder to notice. Women often pay attention to how a man treats himself when nobody is applauding him, not consciously perhaps, but emotionally. Does he constantly apologize for existing? Does he laugh at himself in a healthy way? Or does he quietly insult himself before anyone else has the chance? I've watched countless men reject themselves before anyone else could. They'll dismiss their own accomplishments, minimize their strengths, assume they're already losing. It's heartbreaking because they believe they're being humble. What they're actually revealing is something much deeper. I've already decided I'm not enough. And here's the difficult truth. When you consistently communicate that belief through your posture, your decisions, your hesitation, You unintentionally invite the other person to carry a burden that isn't theirs. No partner can permanently repair a self-image that you're unwilling to question yourself. Love can support healing. It cannot replace it. This doesn't mean you need to become fearless or emotionally invincible. Quite the opposite. Some of the strongest relationships I've ever witnessed included moments where both people admitted, "I'm scared. I don't know. I've been hurt before." The difference was this: they weren't asking the other person to erase their fear. They were simply allowing themselves to be seen without hiding behind perfection. That kind of honesty is surprisingly attractive. Not because vulnerability is magical, because it's believable, and people trust what feels real. So the first reason love begins isn't that a woman discovers a flawless man. It's that she experiences something increasingly rare. She discovers someone whose presence allows her to stop performing and whose own sense of self isn't dependent on her constant approval. That combination creates emotional space, and in emotional space, real attachment has room to breathe. But here's the part that changes everything. Even if she feels completely accepted around you, even if she feels emotionally safe, love still doesn't fully take root. Because one more psychological force has to awaken. Without it, relationships often become comfortable, but not unforgettable. And that second reason is where so many men unknowingly lose the woman they thought would stay forever. The second reason a woman falls deeply in love is quieter than most people expect. It isn't obsession, it isn't mystery for the sake of mystery, and it certainly isn't making her chase you until she's emotionally exhausted. It's something far more human. She begins to believe that her future self is better with you in it. Notice the difference. Not a better life because you rescue her, not a better life because you complete her. A better version of herself because the relationship helps both of you grow without asking either of you to disappear. That distinction matters more than most people realize. Years ago, a woman described the end of a relationship that lasted nearly 6 years. She didn't say, "He wasn't attractive anymore." She didn't say, "We argued too much." Instead, she paused for a long time and quietly admitted, "I couldn't see who I was becoming anymore." That sentence carried more weight than almost anything else she shared. Because relationships don't only connect two people, they slowly shape identity. Without noticing it, you begin borrowing habits from each other. You start using the same expressions, laughing at the same small things, dreaming in similar directions. You become part of each other's emotional landscape. That's why losing someone can feel so disorienting. You're not only grieving the person, you're grieving the version of yourself that existed beside them. Now think about this from another angle. Have you ever met someone who made you want to take your life more seriously? Not because they criticized you, not because they demanded change, but simply because being around them reminded you of the man you wanted to become. Maybe you started reading again, sleeping better, calling your parents more often, taking care of your health. Not out of fear, out of inspiration. That feeling is incredibly powerful. And women experience it too. A relationship becomes emotionally meaningful when it doesn't shrink a person's world. It quietly expands it. The healthiest love doesn't ask, "How can I keep this person?" It asks, "Who are we helping each other become?" That's a very different conversation. Unfortunately, many relationships drift away from that question. Not because either person is bad, because life becomes repetitive. The conversations become predictable. The curiosity fades. People stop asking about each other's inner world and begin discussing only responsibilities, bills, work, schedules, groceries, who's picking up what. Necessary conversations, but not nourishing ones. Then something subtle begins to happen. The relationship still exists, the emotional discovery disappears, and human beings are deeply wired for discovery, not constant excitement, discovery. There's an important difference. Excitement is intense, discovery is alive. A woman can spend years with the same man and still feel emotionally close if she continues discovering new parts of him. His thoughts, his dreams, his changing perspective, his quiet strengths, his evolving understanding of himself. That's why genuine curiosity is so attractive. It says, "I know you, but I don't assume I've finished learning you." Imagine sitting across from someone who believes they've already figured you out. Every answer is predictable, every reaction expected. After a while, you stop revealing yourself. Why bother? Now imagine someone who keeps asking thoughtful questions, not to interrogate you, but because they're sincerely interested. How different would you feel? Probably more alive, more visible, more connected. That isn't manipulation, it's respect. Real intimacy doesn't come from knowing everything about someone. It comes from remaining curious even after years together. Here's another truth many men overlook. A woman doesn't usually remember the most expensive date forever. She remembers how she felt during an ordinary Tuesday evening when nothing special was happening. Did she feel emotionally alone while sitting next to you, or deeply connected during the simplest conversation? Those ordinary moments quietly become the foundation of lasting love. Grand gestures are memorable. Daily emotional presence is unforgettable. And no, this doesn't mean you need to entertain her every day or constantly create new experiences. It means staying emotionally engaged with life yourself. People are naturally drawn towards someone who continues growing, not because growth is impressive, but because it keeps the relationship alive. When a man loses all curiosity about himself, he often loses curiosity about the world, and eventually, the relationship starts feeling emotionally smaller, not overnight, just little by little, almost too slowly to notice. Until one day, both people realize they've been sharing a house, a routine, maybe even a bed, but not much of themselves. This is why love isn't sustained by perfection, it's sustained by presence. The kind of presence that says, I'm still becoming, and I'm interested in who you're becoming too. That creates movement, and movement creates hope. Without hope, love slowly turns into obligation. With hope, even difficult seasons become easier to survive, because both people still believe tomorrow can hold something meaningful. So when you put these two reasons together, something beautiful begins to emerge. A woman falls deeply in love when she feels accepted rather than judged, and when she can genuinely imagine becoming a fuller version of herself beside you. Neither of those depends on having the perfect body, the perfect income, or the perfect words. They depend on something much deeper, something that starts long before romance ever begins. And here's the irony. The men who naturally create these feelings usually aren't trying to create them at all. They're living from a place that many others spend years searching for without even realizing what they're missing. Here's the irony that surprises almost every man I speak with. The qualities that make someone easy to notice are not always the qualities that make someone impossible to forget. Those are two different journeys. A woman might notice confidence the moment you walk into a room. She might admire your sense of humor during your first conversation. She might even feel a spark that neither of you can explain. But months later, when she's lying awake thinking about the relationship, she's rarely replaying the clever joke you told on your first date. She's remembering how she felt after a difficult day when she called you. She's remembering whether your presence felt like another place where she had to perform, or the one place where she could finally put the mask down. That's the part many men never see, because it happens quietly. No applause, no dramatic moment, just hundreds of ordinary interactions that slowly answer one question: who am I when I'm with this man? Every relationship is answering that question, whether either person realizes it or not. I once asked a woman what finally made her choose her husband over someone she had dated years earlier. Her answer wasn't romantic. In fact, it sounded almost too simple. She smiled and said, "With the other man, I always worried about losing him. With my husband, I stopped worrying about losing myself." I don't think she understood how profound that sentence really was. Because fear can imitate love for a while. The butterflies, the uncertainty, the emotional highs and lows, those experiences are intense. But intensity and emotional security are not enemies. The healthiest relationships usually contain both. There is attraction, and there is peace. There is excitement, and there is emotional rest. The problem is that many people have experienced so little consistency that calm starts feeling unfamiliar. Some even mistake it for boredom. Have you noticed how often people say, "I don't know, it just doesn't feel exciting anymore"? Sometimes that's true. Sometimes the relationship has genuinely stopped growing. But sometimes they're simply experiencing peace for the first time. And peace doesn't always announce itself. It whispers. It arrives quietly. It doesn't demand attention. It simply allows your nervous system to breathe. For someone who spent years chasing emotionally unavailable people, that feeling can almost seem suspicious. They wonder, why doesn't this feel more dramatic? Because drama creates adrenaline. Safety creates trust. Those emotions feel completely different inside the body. Now, before you misunderstand me, I'm not suggesting that love should feel predictable in every way. Healthy relationships still surprise us. Not through games, through growth. Your partner changes, you change, life changes. The beauty is learning those new versions of each other again and again. That's why curiosity matters so much. The day you assume you've completely figured someone out, you stop paying attention. And when attention disappears, connection quietly begins fading behind it. Think about the beginning of almost every relationship. You ask endless questions. You notice tiny details. The way she smiles before she laughs. The stories she tells twice because they matter to her. The subjects that make her eyes light up. You become deeply observant. Months later, many couples stop observing. They begin assuming, and assumptions slowly replace discovery. That shift is subtle, but emotionally, it changes everything. The same thing happens with yourself. Many men stop being curious about who they're becoming. They settle into an identity they created years ago. This is just how I am. I've always been like this. I'm too old to change now. Every time I hear those words, I think the same thing. No, you're not describing reality, you're describing a decision. Because human beings never truly stop changing. We only stop noticing. And here's why that matters in love. A relationship can only grow as honestly as the people inside it. If you're no longer exploring your own inner world, if you've stopped asking difficult questions, if you've accepted emotional numbness as adulthood, then eventually the relationship begins reflecting that same stillness. Not peaceful stillness, lifeless stillness. The kind where conversations become practical but never personal. Where laughter becomes polite instead of genuine, where silence feels lonely instead of comforting. Love rarely disappears all at once. It usually fades one unnoticed day at a time, one conversation that never happened, one feeling that remained unspoken, one opportunity to understand each other that quietly slipped away. That's why the strongest relationships aren't built by people who never struggle. They're built by people who keep returning to each other with honesty, again and again and again. Not because it's easy, because the relationship is worth protecting. And perhaps that's the biggest misunderstanding of all. Love isn't something you win. It's something two emotionally honest people keep creating together, every single day. Even when life becomes ordinary, especially then. There's one moment that almost every man remembers. It usually doesn't happen during the relationship. It happens after. Maybe you're driving home. Maybe you're sitting alone late at night staring at a message you never sent. Maybe you're replaying conversations that felt insignificant at the time, and suddenly, one memory refuses to leave you. Not the vacation, not the anniversary, not even the first kiss. It's something unbelievably ordinary. The way she looked at you while you were making coffee, the quiet smile she gave you when you thought she wasn't paying attention, the silence you shared after a long day when neither of you felt the need to fill the room with words. Funny, isn't it? The moments that stay with us are rarely the ones we planned. They're the moments when nobody was trying to impress anyone, because those are the moments when people are usually the most real. I've noticed something after listening to hundreds of stories about love. People don't miss perfection, they miss presence. They miss feeling emotionally known. And perhaps you've confused those two without realizing it. Many men believe they're searching for the perfect woman, but if they're honest, they're really searching for the feeling of finally being accepted without having to earn it every single day. That's a very human longing. Women carry that longing too. Despite what social media might suggest, most people are not secretly searching for someone flawless. They're searching for someone who feels emotionally safe enough to build a life beside. Someone whose words and actions slowly begin matching. Someone who doesn't disappear emotionally the moment life becomes difficult. Think about the people you've trusted most. Was it because they always had the right answer? Probably not. It was because they stayed, not only physically, emotionally. They remained present during uncomfortable conversations. They didn't rush to escape uncertainty. They didn't make you feel like your emotions were an inconvenience. That kind of consistency quietly changes people. And here's something I wish more men understood. Women notice emotional courage more often than emotional perfection. Emotional courage isn't never being afraid. It's saying, "I care about this," without pretending you don't. It's admitting, "That hurt," without turning pain into blame. It's having difficult conversations before resentment quietly builds walls between two people. None of that sounds dramatic, but it's incredibly rare. Many people spend years avoiding honesty because they're terrified it will push someone away. Sometimes it does, but hiding your truth pushes people away much more slowly and much more painfully. You know what happens when two people spend months pretending everything is fine? They stop talking about what's real. Then they stop feeling understood. Then they start feeling lonely, even though they're sitting beside each other. Loneliness inside a relationship is one of the saddest experiences I know, because the person closest to you slowly begins feeling emotionally distant. Not through one argument, through hundreds of tiny moments where vulnerability never happened. This is why I become cautious whenever someone asks me, "How do I make a woman fall in love with me?" It's an understandable question, but it quietly points in the wrong direction. Love isn't something another human being owes you because you followed the right steps. Every relationship is different. Every woman is different. Every man is different. What you can do is become someone who is emotionally available, self-aware, and capable of building genuine trust. Whether love grows from there depends on both people. That's what makes it meaningful. Love isn't a prize, it's a meeting place. Two lives, two histories, two imperfect people deciding over and over again, "I want to keep learning who you are." That decision is never guaranteed. And maybe that's exactly why it matters so much. Because anything guaranteed eventually loses its value. Anything chosen freely carries extraordinary weight. So if you've spent years believing that love belongs only to the richest man, the most handsome man, the funniest man, or the most confident man, I hope you're beginning to see something different. Those qualities can open a door. They rarely keep two hearts connected on their own. What keeps love alive is far less visible. It's the quiet emotional environment you create every time someone shares their real self with you. And there is one final truth about all of this. A truth that many men don't discover until much later in life. Ironically, it has almost nothing to do with women, and everything to do with the relationship you have with the man you become when no one else is watching. So let me leave you with a question, not about her, about you. Who are you when the room is quiet? When there are no messages waiting on your phone, no one to impress, no audience, no relationship to hide inside, just you and your own thoughts. Because sooner or later, every man arrives at that moment. Some fear it, some avoid it, a few decide to finally listen to it. I've noticed that the men who build the healthiest relationships usually make one important shift. They stop asking, "How do I get someone to love me?" And they begin asking, "What kind of man do I become when I love my own life enough that I don't need to pretend?" That question changes everything. Not overnight, quietly. The way sunrise changes a room. You don't notice the exact second the darkness leaves. You simply realize you can finally see. When that shift happens, something interesting begins to unfold. You stop chasing every opportunity to prove your worth. You stop reading rejection as a final verdict on your value. You stop believing that one person's inability to love you defines your ability to be loved. That's emotional freedom. And strangely enough, freedom is attractive. Not because it creates mystery, because it creates honesty. A woman can feel the difference between a man who enjoys her presence and a man who desperately needs her presence to feel complete. The first invites connection. The second quietly asks her to carry responsibilities that no relationship can sustain forever. That doesn't make him weak, it makes him human. We've all wanted someone to fill empty spaces inside us. We've all hoped another person would silence our doubts. But love was never designed to erase your identity. The healthiest love gives your identity room to breathe. Think about the people you admire most. Not because they're famous, not because they're successful, because they're deeply themselves. They don't seem perfect. In fact, they often speak openly about their mistakes, their fears, their regrets, and somehow that honesty makes them feel stronger, not smaller. There's a lesson hidden inside that. People don't connect most deeply with perfection, they connect with truth. Truth has a strange kind of gravity. It draws people closer because it asks nothing from them except presence. Imagine meeting someone who doesn't pretend to have every answer, who can laugh at himself without tearing himself down, who apologizes when he's wrong without believing he's worthless, who celebrates your victories without feeling threatened by them, who has dreams of his own but still makes room to genuinely care about yours. That man isn't impossible. He's simply no longer at war with himself. And when you're no longer fighting yourself every day, you have far more energy to build something meaningful with another person. Maybe that's why the strongest relationships often feel surprisingly peaceful. Not because they never face conflict, because neither person is trying to win every emotional battle. They're trying to understand. They're trying to grow. They're trying to protect something that matters more than being right. So let's come back to the title. Women fall in love for only 2 reasons. Not because 2 magical rules explain every relationship. Human beings are far too complex for that. But beneath countless love stories, 2 emotional patterns appear again and again. She feels accepted rather than judged, and she genuinely believes that life beside you allows both of you to keep becoming more fully yourselves. Everything else, your appearance, your career, your confidence, your sense of humor, can certainly influence attraction. But lasting love grows from something deeper. It grows in the everyday moments where 2 people consistently choose honesty over performance, curiosity over assumption, presence over pretense. If you remember nothing else from our conversation today, remember this. Don't spend your life becoming the man you think women want. Spend your life becoming the man who sleeps peacefully because he no longer has to hide from himself. Ironically, that's often the man who becomes the easiest to love. And whether you're already in a relationship, healing from one, or still waiting for the right person, never forget this. The healthiest love isn't built on trying to be enough for someone else. It's built when 2 people, already committed to growing into their best selves, decide to walk the same road together. That's where love stops feeling like a performance and finally starts feeling like home.